Okay, I'm still muted. Oh, we're back. We only have 7 persons that rejoined us, but that's okay. We lost some persons. Hopefully they come at 8. They're slowly coming in. All right, so we'll continue. So one of the things that we also did was training, Mangrove Action Project. They're an international organization that do mangrove projects and training on their community-based mangrove restoration project all over the world. So I was first introduced to them when I was in Grand Bahama. They were brought in by waterkeepers in Grand Bahama, and I did that training, and I said, we have to get them in for this training here in Andros. And luckily they were coming back to Grand Bahama to do another training, and so we capitalized on that. So they make one trip and they came to Andros and then went to Grand Bahama to do another training there. And so their training was, and this is Dominic and Laura who came. We did it in March 20th to 22nd. So some of the persons on the call were at that training, Rob and Dion and Dr. Lightborn from BAMSI and a few other persons, Wavell, some forestry officers. We had about 20 persons, and we had community members also that were engaged in the training. And so they talk about mangroves and they discuss why community-based ecological mangrove restoration is the best approach. It's a holistic approach to mangrove restoration and management. And it starts with involving the community. And that's why we're really stressing this, that it be community-based, that the community leads out, that they get engaged in the monitoring and the testing and the replanting if that's what is needed. And so for them to do that, they have to be educated and understand some of the science behind mangroves. And so we talk a lot about mangrove ecology and science and soil, and even went in and got dirty and did some of the workshops, some of the practical and hands-on to apply what we learned inside the classroom. And so it's based on 7 principles about researching the site, looking at social issues, studying the local and finding a reference mangrove, and then understanding what changes and corrections that are needed. And that's kind of what we've been doing. And then mapping out and discussing and including objectives for the plan and implementing it, making changes to improve hydrology and removing stresses, and then monitoring and amending it. So that's how our plan is going to be based also for Davis Creek. So these are some of the pictures from that week, that week of training. Some of the participants got our certificates. Our administrator was on hand again. Like you said, he's always very supportive to give us our certificates at the end of the training. We had our field work days where we went in and got muddy and wet, did our salinity tests, our pH tests, all those sorts of things, looking at how we tell, what healthy mangroves look like. So great about there. I didn't tell Danielle I was going to include this, but there you go. There's Danielle. Davis Creek was also featured at a conference in China. Ms. Hannick was at the high-level forum on mangrove conservation in China, and she submitted 2 of our aerial shots from Davis Creek, and they accepted them for submission at the project, and so they were on display. So Davis Creek has made it all the way to China. 242 to the world, Andros to the world. So people probably look like, where's Davis Creek, Bahamas? And now they know where Davis Creek, Bahamas is, right? So in Andros. So it was so cool that was able to be done there. So our HDMI cord is here. Thank you so much. This is another Davis Creek resident, not for long. My neighbor, come out. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, though. Pardon me? Yeah. It's good to have good neighbors. Trust me. Hopefully it works. All right. So we'll continue. Yeah. So it was there. We focus. So I have a drone, which is very helpful because you can't really explore all of Davis Creek by foot. You can't access a lot of it. A lot of it you really can't access. Awesome. It's a little small, but at least y'all could see now. Oh, let me close this out so y'all could see better. Yeah, you can access a lot of Davis Creek by foot. You can't see it. And then the Google images aren't really as good. So I find that when I put up my drone, it's really easier for me to go in and look at some of what's going on in the mangroves. I know BNT has been doing a lot of work with drones in their parks, and you really have a lot of advantages with the drone systems when you fly them over. And I want to give a shout out to awe and small business community. I actually got my drone in a grant from them, grant competition that I won. So it's been really useful for this project, flying the drone over and seeing what's really going on in some areas. Some areas I actually also got out. I should have put that video in there. And I kayaked through Davis Creek from Dream Villas and out, and you can actually see where some areas are blocked sedimentation, like it's, especially if tide gets low, like you can't even go through there. And to think that when you talk to some of the residents, they talk about how in the past, they used to bring their boats up through Davis Creek. I'm like, boat? I can't even get a canoe or kayak up through there. So it's really interesting how these changes have impacted the creek system and what it used to be and what it could have been if these things didn't happen. So yeah. There's a lot going on and a lot that we can do. Then in May, we had another activity. So University of Wisconsin River Falls, they have been coming every year for a number of years. Dr. Kevin Juneau brings his forest conservation course. It's a forest conservation course. And yes, they come to mangroves because mangroves are a forest. And so they come and study the mangroves and also the pine forest too. But they've been doing work in the Davis Creek project for years with Wavell, helping with monitoring and invasive species removal and garbage removal and all those sorts of things. Things changed this year a little bit because of research permits and some other legalities, but they were still able to help with invasive species removal, garbage collection, and their teacher was able to demonstrate the use of like their cyanoids and things like that. So the results were we removed about 20 large bags of garbage during that week. There's a lot of trash. I mean, one area, like one creek was literally blocked with like 3 big garbage bags just of water bottles was in one area in the creek. And it was just crazy how much garbage was in there. And that was because it was at the area that's blocked. It used to be a flow of the creek and it was stopped up. So everything was stopping right there and couldn't go any further. And so it had just piled up for years, I guess. We did some invasive species removal, casuarinas. You see, girl power. Sam, I think her name was Sam. There with the chainsaw. Wavell had the chainsaw also. We had Bamsey came down, Dr. Lightbourne and some of his crew came down. I mean, like we broke pickaxes and shovels. They were snapping left, right, and center, trying to get those cabolas out. It was so much work. And then we also did some monitoring, measuring of trees and mangroves in the different plots that had already been established from previous work. So we have 4 plots, and each of the 4 plots have 2 subplots, and that's where we take our data and information. So that was a very successful week. We also cleared out we completely cleared out a culvert. A culvert was completely blocked, and we were able to clear it out and remove all the sediment and restore flow in that area. So that was a really good thing that we did. And 1 along 2 culverts around Davis Creek, we were able to restore flow to, and then 1 along Crystal Bay Road. So that was, and you could see the water just like, whoosh, finally, like we can move, we can go, we have, and like it wanted to go, but it was blocked up. I know we have a blocked creek system project also that's running parallel. They had a town hall meeting in the same place earlier this year, and that's starting up again. And there's a lot of creeks that are just blocked up. And if we restore the flow, you'll be just amazed at how that helps the mangrove system. All right, so moving on, we have some more plans. This kind of work that we're talking about, garbage removal, invasives removal, that's something that has to continuously happen, because unfortunately, people are continuously gonna put garbage in places. Unfortunately, the invasives are gonna come back unless you replant something else. Because of how scavolias and casuarinas spread so quickly in their seeds and they propagate, they just gonna come back. So you have to have a maintenance and monitoring plan for them. You have to have this continuously. So that's all part of the plan that we're gonna have. We also want to have signage in Davis Creek. We think it's really important for persons to understand the importance of the creek system, what's being done, how they can help, some of the things to look out for. And so we want to put up signs, and hopefully also I'm hoping that this area actually gets put into the RASMA convention as an important wetlands. That's going to take some work, but even before then, we could still treat it as an important wetland, right? And so we have designed signs to kind of mimic what the RASMA signs look like. And we're suggesting 4 locations. And for those in the room, you have it on the screen. We also have big maps printed in front for you. So one first sign, of course, at Love Hill Beach, like I mentioned, it's very popular, right? That's where they have all the beach parties. Everybody goes out there on Sunday. My beach, I call it my beach, my private beach, is across the creek. I have to walk to it from my house. Nobody's hardly ever there, but I could see Love Hill Beach from there. And there's always a big crowd, always a lot of people there. And if you have a sign there, that's a lot of persons you're impacting, teaching them about the wetlands, and, they can read it. We want to put like a QR code on there, maybe where they could scan it and go for more information, etc. So that's a great location. B is another location is Dream Villas, Boardwalk, Walk. And even though they have had a lot of impact on the site, a lot of persons come there. And Mr. Diago, when he built that, his intentions were to get persons more engaged in nature and give them access to the mangroves. We may debate about the way it went about, but it's already there, and we can use that to our advantage, right? Because a lot of persons, but that's where I launched the kayak from. You can take kayak tours from there, and so that's a great place to put information about the wetlands, about species, birds, plants, whatever, there. And then also the entrance to Crystal Bay, that's close to the road. There's not a lot of people go in the back there, but if you put a sign on the road, people will pass it, going on the highway, and they may stop and learn more. And then of course, down by Small Hope Bay, we were hoping that we could get a sign there so people understand, you're in a wetlands of importance. These are some of the things to look out for. These are some of the things that are being done, etc. So this is a sample of some of the information that we want to put there, just discussing the project area. The title would change, right? So for Love Hill Beach, it'll say Love Hill. For Small Hope Bay, it'll say Small Hope Bay, Davis Creek, Brigadairs, say Brigadairs. And it'll have the project area, then it'll have information where they could go. We could even put a QR code there where they could scan, would take them to a website that has more information on it, or a website. I know Miss Hannick has been pushing that we want to do like a live feed camera. I spoke to Miss Manuel today, actually, she's on the flight with me. And, that might be a good area to put it, Brigadairs, where it's protected and, people won't just fool with it. And then you have mangroves conservation, why it's important, and then some of the common native species that they can look out for, and then some of the invasives that they can actually look out for. And if we want, we can add bird information about that, but the bird information is so much. Well, I know you want bird information there. But what we could do also, I was thinking we could put another QR code where they could, we could have a separate bird one, and they can actually record bird count. So if you see certain birds, you could record it, go to this website and say, oh, I saw this bird here at Davis Creek on a such and such a day, or whatever the case may be. And that's a really good way to engage the community, engage persons who come in the area, etc. So those are some of the plans that we have. So more plans coming up. So this week, we plan on doing a workshop. It's a follow-up workshop from the one in March. But if you didn't do the one in March, you could still come to this one. We'll do a recap, and we'll look at it a little different on how to apply those things that we were taught by Matt to this project. We'll also go more in depth in the management plan that I've already drafted, because I want to get persons' feedback to make sure it's doable. Because I could sit as a consultant and draft a plan. I could sit and say, oh, this is what needs to be done. But if the community isn't like, oh yeah, we could do this, or we want to do this, then it'll just sit on forestry desks, right? Nothing will happen. So I want to make sure that we get feedback from the community, feedback from the persons in Davis Creek or who are involved in the project, forestry, and some of the community leaders, BAMSI, BNT, whoever, to make sure it's actually doable, right? And some of the things Can you make mics, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I always told people, they got they can.
Okay, I need it. Okay. Oh, and we have Eric Carey that joined us. So thank you, Mr. Carey, for joining us. I wouldn't have known he was there unless if he wasn't unmuted. So yeah, so on Thursday, the workshop, we will go through the proposed plan that we have drafted, get your feedback on it. We'll break for lunch. And then weather permitting, we hope the weather permits. We'll do some field exercises. So come prepared, those who are coming to the workshop, to get dirty. Y'all know how this works. Muddy, dirty. We'll go into the wetlands. Some of y'all can stay on the boardwalk, but we like to go in. We'll do some tests. Because one of the things that I did was make sure we use testing tools and things that the layperson can use, right? That we're not going to pay for $13,000 water quality tests. We're not going to send samples and ship them off. So we want to do quick tests that can be indicators, on the salinity, dissolved oxygen, or the pH, etc., nutrient levels that we can use test kits for when we're looking at monitoring the system. Also, some of our data sheets. You use a measuring tape, a pencil, a paper. Measure, width and height and circumferences of mangroves, et cetera. And then also species counts, right? And helping you to identify some of the species and looking at them and seeing what's present or what's absent, what's changed. So for the workshop, if you're interested in coming, we're really asking you to register ahead of time. So just for planning purposes, we do have lunch and we want to make sure we could facilitate everybody that's coming. It's open to the public, anyone can come. In person. We won't have this on Zoom. I don't think this is going to be Zoomed or anything. So if you're in the Davis Creek area on Thursday and would like to join us for this training, please sign up. This workshop, please sign up. We'll really like to see you. And then on Friday, we, again, weather permitting, we want to tackle again. We can keep tackling them. We're going to keep coming back until they're gone. The scavolia. See, we had cleaned the road. The road was clean, like clean. Y'all should have seen the before picture. But they're coming back again. So we want to tackle those again on Friday. And then on Saturday is the beach cleanup. Just 10 to 12. We're going to, you see all these casuarinas here. We're not going to cut those. We may need a bigger project, but then, the beach goers are going to complain. It's like, that's our shade. When we go to the beach, that's our shade to protect us from the sun, not understanding the impact that they're actually having, right? So we're going to be in the Love Hill Beach area. We're going to have some cool giveaways. Those who aren't in the room, you're missing out on giveaways. We have keychains and stuff. We have giveaways. We have snacks. We have water and chips and juice and stuff. So you want to come out and actually be in the room, in the place to help us. And then we can mingle and we'll talk a little bit also. And that's planned for Saturday at Love Hill Beach. And if you missed this opportunity, we should have another opportunity in February, because we really also want to do is go into the schools and do community outreach. Unfortunately, the schools are already closed this week, so we weren't able to engage them, but we do have plans to go into the schools. We have one of the high school teachers, Nicola Bow. She was a part of our training. She's very also engaged with some of this work. So we want to make sure we get the kids, because once we get the kids involved, it's a done deal, right? Because they can drag their parents along and they're going to make sure that their parents are aware of what's going on. So we want to make sure, and it's their future, right? It's their legacy, it's their heritage, it's going to be their problem to deal with if we don't fix it, right? So we want to make sure we engage the youth, engage the young people. So we'll finalize the management plans and monitoring plans, finalize the reports, project completion and handover, because I'm not going to be on a project for forever. But then we'll have something there, and then we're going to work on the signage and then communications package, video or whatever, how we can get the word out and information out, and then maybe a live camera feed. And then we're going to make sure that the project has sustainability, that it doesn't just die here, that it continues, and persons know Davis Creek is an important wetlands, that we should conserve it, we should preserve it. And something that we always talk about, and that was really stressed in our training with MAP, is that it's easier to preserve and conserve than to restore. So we really want to focus on that conservation and preservation. What's already here, we want to preserve that. We want to conserve that. because we don't want to have to come back and keep restoring, right? We don't want to have to come back and keep replanting. And so if we can have that mindset, and we can get persons engaged and the community to take ownership of this project, that would be successful. All right. And I think that's it for me on my side. So I don't know if there are any questions from persons here in the audience, any feedback, any additional suggestions that you may have, like on the signage or anything else you think we should or could be doing to make this project more successful. Please, we're here to hear you. We're here to learn and to absorb as much as we can during this process. So any questions, any feedback, open your mics and we're ready to listen. Anyone? Not all at once. No one?
So Stacy, we've talked about this before, right? This is Robert Young.
Hi, Robert.
So to me, it's one of the things that's really important is understanding the baseline, because if we don't understand the baseline, we don't know whether we're improving or regressing. When you talk about restoration, it's important to know if you're trying to restore, you need to know where you're going, right?
Right.
So do we have a good baseline document at this point that tells us things like water flows through culverts or water flows at specific places in the creek? And obviously it makes a big difference. I mean, it makes a big difference as to what the tide is when you're measuring the water flow, because that's going to affect the water flow a lot. Also, you mentioned bacterial testing, so E. coli and other bacterials. So you said we have done some testing. Do we know where we did the testing? And is there, if you want the community to take this over, then there has to be a document in the handover.
Right.
And then, so for example, I do E. coli bacterial testing in the creek behind my house on a regular basis, at least once a year. Right. And so I actually see, I don't see a measurable quantity back there. Now, that part of the creek actually turns over so much, I'm not sure I would, but so I know that piece, but that's not a very big part of the 85 hectares, right? So
yeah.
So I just, there's got
the part. Yeah, that's definitely, so one of the outputs is a baseline site assessment. And that's something that's been ongoing. Like I said, unfortunately, we didn't get it done at the beginning of the project, at the initial, like 2016. So we don't know exactly what, it was done more in 2021. But we still do have an indicator, and that's when the testing was done. So yes, we know exactly where those tests were taken. We know exactly what's present, and so all that documentation and all of that is available. So that baseline site assessment, like you mentioned, is important, and that's some of the things that's in there. Yes.
Okay. I mean, and to me, part of the baseline is also, I mean, if you have images and we know where those images were taken.
Yes.
And when, right? Because I mean, I do the same thing, right? I take images and the images, if you don't know what the tide was when the image was taken, they're going to look very, very different, right? I mean,
yeah, because in some of the work that we've done, we've tried to use Google imaging and the, old imaging to look and see some of the changes that have taken place in the creek system. And you can do that, right? Time lapse with the Google images. But like you said, it's limited. And you could see with some of them, the sedimentation is really high because tide was probably very low then, and not necessarily an indicator that's how it always is. So we're cognizant of those kind of things. But yeah, that's one of the things that was done as part of the baseline, looking at historical images, talking to persons also Like I said, that was very helpful, understanding that, oh yeah, it used to be deep enough for boats to go through. Like, so what had happened? And when did it happen? You know, and where the creek actually used to flow before it was diverted, et cetera. So all that's kind of been taken into consideration to try and get a snapshot of what it used to be. So what we possibly could restore it to. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that, to me, that's whoever decides to take, whoever's taking this on
Yeah.
after
We're
the
hoping that
project is
it's you.
done.
We're hoping it's you. I want to
Well,
put that out there, my good neighbor, because we need
I
community-based persons who are very knowledgeable and resident here. So that's one of the things that we're really looking for engagement from persons like yourself, Robert, who are already doing some of the work in the community, and we can expand that and get other persons to assist and help you so that we can make it a true community effort, and we can cover the whole creek instead of just behind your house or by Small Hope Bay, and make sure that we're capturing, you know, changes and looking at what's going on in Davis Creek.
yes. All right, I'm gonna let somebody else talk, but
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I see Dr. Kevin, you know, is saying hello from snowy Wisconsin. That's Dr. from University of Wisconsin River Falls, who was a part of the project. He joined us. I'm so glad to have you. So thank you again for all the work that you've been doing and helping us here in Davis Creek with just students. So thank you so much.
I have a quick question. This is Ego McKenzie. So I've been listening to talks from Mr. Young and yourself, and you guys are talking about looking at like historical data and I think flow direction of the creek. Have you guys considered using like digital elevation model map where you can actually look at the flow rate, whether it's upstream, downstream of the flow direction of the water, as it pertains to the flow of the creek? Because you can get that information from digital elevation model map. And then also, have you looked at our remote sensing to actually help you to assist with looking at the changes in the depth of the sediment within that area over time? Because you can actually use remote sensing to actually get all of that information and also to cover a larger area in terms of what you guys are working in the area that you guys are working within. So I don't know if that's something you considered.
Yes, it's something that we have considered. We know that it's a possibility to get that information. It's just having the expertise to actually do that and the time, yeah, and the budget to do that. So it's kind of beyond the scope of this part of the project right now, but definitely it's something that we have noted that could be done and should be if we want to learn more.
Yeah, because with the satellite imagery, you don't even need any. They basically, you can get them. You can access satellite imagery online for free, basically.
Yeah, on Google Earth and those sorts of things.
Well,
But
not Google Earth. I'm talking about like, because Google Earth is just basically a standard RGB images, which is just basically a regular image that you would acquire, taken, like say, and for example, a regular digital camera. But what I'm talking about is the satellite imagery, which is usually picked up by satellites, these sensors that are actually on satellites that's actually orbiting the Earth. So they have like a specific special type of sensor. You have multispectral, hyperspectral, other type of sensors like passive versus active. And what they do is that they record the reflective spectral signature of each object on Earth. And so you can actually use that satellite imagery to then be able to quantify changes of specific object on Earth.
right.
And so it's totally different from what you would get from Google Earth.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like
Right.
Sentinel-2 satellite imagery.
Yeah, we've done some of that in ArcGIS. I have a graduate certificate in GIS.
So,
like I said, some of them, I don't have access to some of those tools and the images. I do, but if you want to volunteer, you're certain not volunteer, but if you want to, you know, put it in there, you sound like you know what you do. We could bring you on as a consultant and get you to do some of that work for us. So
yeah, actually,
there you go.
Actually, we put out a recent paper on the impact of Hurricane Dorian on pine forests of Grand Bahama, which actually quantified the change in the vegetation from 2004 2019 post-hurricane using satellite imagery. So we were able to capture most of that detail.
Yeah, I remember some of. Yeah, I think I saw that paper.
So you can. It's possible you can actually get it then.
So this is Robert. This is Robert again. I guess the thing that I think So actually, I've been looking at the stuff that like Prairie Marine Institute does, using the satellite imagery. And I guess I have some background in doing, um, uh, statistical modeling, let's just say, from data. And one of the things I've been looking at is, can we correlate? Because if we want the community to be able to do this, I think we have to take, you have to be able to do this at multiple levels, right? So some of it's going to be, can we just take drone shots and use the RGB images, so decompose them into the numerical numbers, and then analyze them, so that we can just say where are their changes, which I think we can do with drone images without needing to be able to download big data sets, and then potentially correlate those to the big data sets so that we can do stuff over time. Now, as Stacy said, you've got to actually make time to do that. And I haven't, I have, while I've started looking at how, I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, you can actually use a drone, but so the camera that has to be mounted on the drone has to be one that's multispectral, because with the multispectral, you can use like software like ArcGIS Pro, or any of the other software like that's actually created for like image analysis, and you can be able to extract that information. So you can do it the way you suggested, where you have like these various GPS point, and you can do what is called like a feature extraction, where you can actually extract the information for the GPS point that's based on your area of interest, and then you can use that to do like correlation analysis if you have a before and after imagery, or even if you have like a baseline image. Let's say, for example, your baseline image is 2023. And then if we consistently collect data over time, 2024, 25, etc., then you can, within the same location, you can then extract that information based on the satellite imagery or the drone images and look at the changes over time. So it can be done.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to reiterate, like Robert said, our goal with this is to make sure that we have tools and monitoring tools and plans, management plans that are simple enough for our community persons and lay persons to actually use and do, for it to be sustainable, because we're not going to have in the budget to hire GIS experts and, persons like that to be looking at these things every year. So once we develop these tools and tips, I have a drone, Robert has a drone, a couple other persons, and we have, the locations that are, plots and areas that we know that are designed for them to go and look at, so we could actually compare data year over year. That's when we actually start to to see changes and document changes and make a difference and try to correct any anomalies that we see in the Davis Creek area. So we have 5 minutes left. And we just want to thank you all again for coming and spending this time with us, those who are in person, for braving this weather. Oh my goodness. It's really bad out here. But thank you all for coming and coming out in the rain and spending time with us, and those who came back and spent time with us online, and for lending your ear and also giving feedback. And those who are going to come out the rest of the week and help us out with the rest of this project. If there's anything else, if you want to send any information or emails, we have the forestry unit has put their email and contact information in the chat for you, bahamasforestry@gmail.com. If you want to learn more about the project, if you have any other suggestions that you want to send about the project, etc., and you want to updates or whatever the case may be, you can send to that email. And if there's nothing else, I think we could sign off again before we get kicked out.
Just one quick suggestion. Now, have you tried Story Map or ArcGIS Story Map and Dashboard? That would be perfect for what you guys are trying to do, because with that you can set up like a dashboard with a story map, and then as individuals collect data, you can have them actually input that into the system, and they can get live update as they input the information in the system. So it's similar to the I forgot that the COVID dashboard thing that I forgot the university did, that you could see the live update. So it's similar to that with the story map dashboard combination.
Okay,
So that's something you guys can consider.
you consider that. Well, we ought to see who has an ArcGIS license, because a lot of those things they're not free, they have to be licensed. You have to have the software to set it up and to maintain it. So that's one of the issues that we sometimes have. But we'll definitely note that and take that into consideration. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Okay, if there's nothing else, and thank you again, Dr. Juno, and all the rest who have joined us, and we wish you a good evening. Okay, all right.